Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Real Madrid are back to winning ways, this time against a streaky Roma side. How did they do it? Where did Roma go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how Real Madrid defeated Roma. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see where Roma went right and why Real Madrid struggled to create chances. Then get to the second half where Real Madrid were able to kill off the game and gain 3 points. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We have Roma in a 4-2-3-1, Schick up front ahead of Under, Zaniolo, and El Shaarawy. And midfield, they want Cristante and Nzonzi. Then we look at Real Madrid 4-3-3, no Isco, no Asensio. It was Bale, Benzema, and Lucas Vazquez up front. And then we get into the midfield, Luka Modric and Toni Kroos ahead of Llorente. But first, let's get to the first half, see what Roma did right and why Real Madrid were struggling to create chances and why Roma probably were kicking themselves that they didn't go into halftime up 1-0. So 4-2-3-1 against 4-3-3. We look at it, obviously, Roma looking to disrupt Real Madrid in midfield, looking to bypass them without Casemiro. Essentially what it should be is that Zaniolo should be sitting on Llorente, and then you have Nzonzi and Cristante kind of pushing out to Toni Kroos and Luka Modric. That didn't really happen. They often dropped off into their shape. Modric and Kroos had time to pick up the ball. They were able to play passes, and with Llorente, what basically happened is that Zaniolo times looked to help out Schick press, but what they ended up doing was that the center backs obviously split. Llorente was able to drop in deep, and it was often 3v2 because you had Under, who was supposed to be closing down Marcelo, you had El Shaarawy, who was supposed to be closing down Carvajal to ensure that they couldn't break forward, and that is kind of how Roma went about things. So Madrid always had an outlet to break forward, whereas we look at Madrid and the way they were going about things, when they did look to drop off and they had Cristante move into between the center backs to build out the back, Madrid would press with their front three. That didn't happen often, but what happened here was that they had Benzema chasing the ball, and as we've seen in the past, if Benzema chases to the left, you could have Modric step out, or you could have Kroos step out. If Benzema goes to the left, you could have Modric step out as well. So basically, they had the center midfielders who were able to push forward, and they often maintained higher positions throughout the game because Nzonzi and Cristante were dropping so deep. We also saw the wider players gamble a bit and not put too much emphasis on Florenzi or Kolarov go forward. If they didn't push up and you had Benzema pressing, let's say, to his left, you would have Vazquez push out and try to step to Fazio, and that would leave a gap there, and vice versa. Bale would step out to his left and try and get onto Manolas, and that's how they were going about it. So when you think about it, you have these two lineups. You think about the players that are in position. You have Vazquez there to kind of ensure that Kolarov doesn't break forward. Bale dealing with Florenzi. That's probably not the battle that Roma wanted, however, and Bale was pretty quiet throughout the first half, not really getting going. Madrid tried to ping a lot of balls into Benzema, playing a lot of direct balls into him, but he was unable to really link play with his teammates. A lot of his touches were loose, not in the initial touch, but the second touch. Bale obviously trying to make direct runs in as well, not often sticking to the line, and they were able to really get forward because Under was often caught narrow. Marcelo often had time to get up the pitch with the ball. There were sometimes where Kroos dropped into that space, and you had Under stepping to him for some odd reason because the central midfielders wanted to keep their position, so Marcelo was able to push forward as well. When we think about it as a whole, Roma obviously had their opportunities too, because if Marcelo pushes, there's space for Under to drop into. Carvajal struggled 1v1 with El Shaarawy, and then eventually Kluivert, who did come on, was trying to make diagonal runs in between. But the center backs coped well with Schick, and the midfield battle, Cristante and Nzonzi not really offering much in terms of exploiting Real Madrid or causing them any problems in the final third. So now let's look at Roma. Let's see what they did right in the first half and how they were able to create chances, or we could say have chances to trouble Real Madrid's backline. So if Madrid weren't looking to really close it down from the front, they would often drop off into that 4-5-1 without the ball. What happened here was that Roma were finding space out in the wider areas. They were making it, taking advantage of it, and they were gaining good opportunities, but not really putting the final touches on in the final third, lacking that extra bit of quality. We saw in the earlier stages where El Shaarawy was getting the better down the left-hand side. He forced Carvajal to pull him down after he zipped by him. He forced Luka Modric into a booking as he drove down the left-hand side running with the ball. Unfortunately, Kluivert did have to come on for him and didn't have the same impact that he was having in the earlier stages of the game. We look at some of the chances that they do create. One of it stems from Cristante sliding the ball out to under. What happens there is that Marcelo is attracted. Bale's obviously dropped off, but Florenzi makes a diagonal, makes a run in behind them from a narrow position into that space. Under clips it out to him. The cross into the box is obviously cleared by Varane, and what happens is that Vazquez picks it up, but his first touch is a bit heavy, and he tries to guide the ball past Kolarov, but Kolarov is able to nip it ahead of him. He does claim for a handball, and then he fires a shot wide, but again, you're seeing that they're getting down that right-hand side. That was the initial point of that play, was that they were able to easily bypass them. Marcelo getting sucked in, Bale not tracking the run. They had an opportunity, possibly should have done better, but they didn't. We look at another one where it's just simply them getting out, and it's Under making a deep run. He makes a deep run from his own half based on the fact that Marcelo was caught high. Bale doesn't close Lucas. Bale doesn't close Florenzi. He clips the ball into that space. Under runs onto it, which forces Ramos out. Now his cross into the box, and he tries to deliver it, sees El Shaarawy, who was on at the time, trying to run and attack it, but he slips and falls, and the ball just ends up evading everyone. But again, they're getting into good positions. That should lead to an opportunity. El Shaarawy unfortunately slipped, and that was a great opportunity for them. We look to how they were also getting down the left-hand side. They were trying to get Kolarov involved as well. There was one time where they slid it out to him. He was able to go 1v1 with Lucas Vazquez, cut infield, and fire a shot right at Courtois. The other aspect was that they were getting him into those positions, and he was able to offer some sort of threat. That is why Vazquez was there, to ensure that he doesn't break forward. And what happened here was that he slid the ball out to him. What happens here now is as he gets into that half, Vazquez doesn't get tight to him enough, and what happens is that you have Schick trying to make that run in between the center backs. Varane should do better to clear his lines. Ramos tracks him well, which forces him to fire a tame effort on goal, and it rolls into Courtois' hands. But again, that's a big opportunity that perhaps Schick should do better. If Dzeko's there, perhaps that does lead to a goal-scoring opportunity. But again, Roma getting into good positions in wide areas, not being closed down by Real Madrid. That is a big problem for Real. We look at a better opportunity. What happens here is that Nzonzi ends up stopping a run from Lucas Vazquez, pokes it out to Kolarov, who's now able to drive forward past Vazquez. What we end up seeing here is that Carvajal is occupied by Kluivert. We see Schick drag out Varane. Then you have Ramos, and you have Marcelo tracking back. What happens there is that Under makes the run in between them, and there's such a big space because Kolarov isn't closed down that he slides the ball into that path, but Courtois comes off his line quick and nothing comes from it. You think about the other opportunity where they break down the right-hand side. It leads to Fazio nearly getting a shot on goal that Carvajal blocks. Schick then fires a point-blank effort shot from 6 yards out. Courtois saves it. Kolarov fires a 35-yard shot wide of the net. And then the big chance. You have Schick pressing Carvajal, trying to close him down. Carvajal plays the back heel pass to Varane, but it's Zaniolo who gets onto it and slides a superb ball past Ramos into Under from 6 yards out. He should score. This is what the great teams do. They execute, especially at home against a side like Real Madrid. They didn't do it, and you have to think that this was a great opportunity for Roma, getting into good positions in wide areas, not really playing well. And with Madrid, they weren't doing much either, because when we look at their chances, it comes very far in between. They didn't really do much. Lucas Vazquez was struggling to get the better of Kolarov. Like I said, a lot of balls were going into Benzema, but really unable to link play. Modric and Cruz weren't creating anything from deeper. Marcelo and Carvajal weren't getting as forward as you would normally see them do. A lot of times they were playing diagonals in the early stages, but not really affecting play in the final third. We look at a few chances that Real Madrid did get. The first one stems from Marcelo breaking forward, trying to play a pass into the forward line, but Florenzi intercepts it, skips past him, but this is where Llorente came across. He made a big difference in that midfield. He was breaking up play, covering the space, evading challenges, retaining possession under pressure. There, he won the ball off Florenzi. Marcelo now is able to play that pass in between, under and in between Cristante for Bale, for Benzema, but the pass into the box is just overhit for Bale, and that was a big opportunity for Real Madrid that they probably should have executed. We look at another one that does come to mind. It stems from Sergio Ramos clipping the ball out to Marcelo. Marcelo is free because what happens here is that understep to Cruz. So now an understeps to Cruz and the ball is played out to Marcelo. He has to make that recovery run back. Florenzi's obviously stepping towards him. That allows Bale to make that run in. So Marcelo plays the ball in behind. Manolas tracks him. Bale tries to wrap the ball around him, but he wraps the ball out of play. That is what we don't expect from Gareth Bale. We expect him to storm by him and break into the box, but Bale wasn't really at full pace in the first half. It was a bit sluggish. He wasn't at his best like he was in the second half. But that was a great opportunity for them that probably they should have done better, but they didn't. And then we look to probably their best chance of the half. And it stems from a simple Courtois throw rollout. What happens here is that Cruz pokes the ball into the path of Modric, but what he doesn't expect is that Modric is nowhere near him, so a loose ball ensues. Zaniolo and Cristante run to it, but Modric pokes it between them and plays it out to Cruz. Now Cruz is able to drive forward, and we finally get the 1v1 that Bale wants with Florenzi. He goes 1v1 with him, he cuts outside, looking for Benzema. It doesn't fall to him, but it ends up falling to Lucas Vazquez, who brings the ball down and tees up Luka Modric, breaking towards the edge of the box, and he fires a shot on goal that Olsen kicks away before the ball is kicked out for a corner kick. But Real Madrid weren't at full pace. They weren't creating chances from open play. It wasn't that Roma were doing anything spectacular when they dropped into their two banks of four. Real Madrid just weren't sharp. They looked like they lacked motivation, not full of confidence. And here into the second half, we wanted to see how they were able to change the game and whether Roma would be able to bounce back from all their missed opportunities. So now let's look at the second half and see what Real Madrid did right. The second half itself didn't really see much changes. We did see Luka Modric play a bit higher down the right-hand side, but what happened was that Roma were off to a very horrible start. It stems from an Olsen kick up in the air, very poor. Fazio ends up challenging it with Benzema. Bale is in an offside position, and that already is a bad idea because if you're nodding it back, you have to ensure it's away from Bale, but he nods it right into the path of Bale. Manolas ends up recovering, but Bale's able to cut in on him and fire a shot past the keeper, and within a minute, they're already up 1-0. And Gareth Bale looked like he was just going to continue this threat based on the fact that now Roma had to push forward. Real Madrid had all the space and time to counterattack, and they made them pay on several occasions. You think about Marcelo winning the ball deep in his half, and he's able to locate Florenzi a bit higher. He clips the ball into that path. Bale's able to get on his bike and run forward. What happens is that Kolarov, who was covering on from the left-hand side in a central position, is able to hold them off a bit, and with Olsen coming out, instead of rounding him, he decides to chip him, and he chips the ball right into the keeper. But again, another opportunity where Bale's able to break forward on the counterattack. Should have scored, didn't score, but again, it's a warning sign for them. They did have their chance though, and it did stem from the fact that Bale, coincidentally, didn't want to close down Florenzi when he was able to. So the ball switched out to Florenzi. He doesn't want to close him, which then forces Marcelo to step. And what happens here is that Under runs off Ramos, who is now forced to track him. The ball is clipped over. Under, first time, guides it into the box. We see Varane run with Schick into the box. They both miss it. It falls to Kluivert, who's able to cut away from Carvajal and fire his shot right at Courtois. A good opportunity. Roma needed more of that, but they didn't get more of it. Although Kluivert, his pace did force Carvajal into some shaky moments. It did lead to a corner kick, but what happens after that? We see the second goal. How does that stem? Again, another counterattack, and this time it's Llorente who's able to win the ball. He's able to nod it into the path of Benzema. Benzema's able to break on what is a 3v3, and what happens here is that on that 3v3, it's Benzema and it's the two shuttlers. So the two shuttlers are breaking out. Benzema ends up sliding it to Cruz, which was probably the wrong decision because Modric was blistering forward. Cruz is able to beat his marker, but he plays his cross from the byline and it's overhit. Modric is able to retrieve it, and who does he locate breaking into the box? Well, it's Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale looks up, he sees Benzema. Benzema peels off Manolas, and Florenzi does get caught under it, and he nods it into the path of Lucas Vazquez, who's able to tap his effort into the net. So simple, so easy, but again, another Real Madrid counterattack, and it continued from a free kick that Roma were able to get. What happens here is that it falls to Luka Modric. He's able to clip the ball to Florenzi, and it's Marcelo and Florenzi. What happens here is that Marcelo nods it over Florenzi into the path of who? Gareth Bale, breaking down the left-hand side, driving forward. Marcelo continues his run. Bale breaks into the box, pulls it back from Marcelo. Marcelo should score. He fires it at the keeper. We see Roma make change. They bring on Koric. He goes into midfield, but within a few seconds, he gives up the ball. It leads to a 4v3 break. This time it's Bale leading the 4v3 break. He slides it to Benzema in right half space, and he fires a shot at Olsen. After that, Real Madrid kind of eased their way out of the game. Mariano came on. They brought on Valverde, they brought out Asensio. Roma couldn't really change things. They ended up bringing on Karsdorp, and they ended up seeing Florenzi push forward into what was still a 4-2-3-1 with Under Justin behind him, but they didn't really force Courtois into any big saves. And Real Madrid, based off that one mistake, they executed, whereas Roma didn't in the first half, and after that, they were able to kill off the game on the counterattack. But let me know what you guys think. Can Real Madrid still win the Champions League this season? Would you mark them as the favorites? And what about Roma? Qualify out of the group, but can they do any damage in the round of 16, especially on this form where they're so inconsistent? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.